Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Ready? 1. You will do this 4 times with the left, 4 with the right, then 8 times with both, then repeat.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Wednesday. That means it's time for you to set your fantasy football lineups, and never fear, the Fantasy Greek is here. Hello, you are listening to the Fantasy Greek starts and sits in 60 minutes here on Late Night Sports Radio. I'm Keith Grieve from 87sportsfans.com, joined as always by Mr. Jim Saranteas, the Fantasy Greek himself from thefantasygreek.com. How are you, Jim?
Keith, I'm feeling strong, feeling good. I love that music intro, man. That is just good stuff.
How can you not take on the world after the Beastie Boys?
I wish we could do this live like Mike and Mike. That way people could actually see us and could have seen what I was doing with my hands while I was just listening to that music.
Well, you have a camera in front of your setup, right? Don't you?
I probably do, but I'm not turning it on at this moment.
No,
for
we
you.
would have to plan this out. But
I need makeup, man. I need makeup.
We can look at a streamcast later. We'll down the road. We got to make plans. We got a lot of irons in the fire here. So,
that's right.
A reminder that this broadcast is brought to you by thefantasygreek.com. For all of your fantasy football advice, questions, and information, head over to thefantasygreek.com. And if you want to call in with your lineup questions, the number is 585-633-7487. That's 585-633-7487. Don't be afraid to interrupt us at any time. So after a topsy-turvy week that began with, I don't know if it began, but it was highlighted by Percy Harvin being traded to the Jets, and now there's all kinds of stories coming out. And there was a lot of games last week that just kind of threw us for a loop, including the Seattle Seahawks and the Cleveland Browns. The Texans, we just don't know what to think of them. And the Bears playing miserable against the Miami Dolphins at home. And then you had that whole locker room fiasco. Based on all the news, just before we get into it, Jim, because we're both Bears fans, so I'm going to be a little bit of a homer here. Do you feel, based on what we've heard since Sunday, that it's all water under the bridge and it might be a good thing for the Bears, this whole locker room dust-up that Brandon Marshall initiated?
Well, Keith, I sure hope so, because this is something that you really can't, with half the season pretty much gone, you can't have this hanging over your head for another 9 weeks. I'd like to believe so. I think if they've gone on record saying that it's going to be business as usual this weekend, and they're going to need it because they're going to have a tough game against the Patriots on the road.
All right. We'll get to that game a little bit later. So let's start with the Thursday night game. The San Diego Chargers travel to the Denver Broncos, which is what I feel is the matchup of the week right here. It's too bad it has to happen on a Thursday night. But nevertheless, in prime time, I guess is as good a time as any. The Denver Broncos wallop the San Francisco 49ers. Yes, I picked the 49ers, and shame on me. I will never pick against Denver at home ever again. So I already gave away my pick. But that being said, if there's a team that could give San Diego give Denver some problems, it's the Chargers, because they have the ability to score some points. They can keep up with Denver. And their defense is a little underrated. I don't think anybody really realizes that this San Diego defense it may not be lights out, it may not be shut down, but it is a good defense. But that being said, Denver's at home, and they got all the momentum lately running their way, so there's no way to pick. And Ronnie Hillman has been a nice upgrade, I believe, over Monty Ball, in my personal opinion, at the running back position. So I am going to pick the Denver Broncos.
Keith, there's one of two ways that this game could go, and one of two ways you could really look at it. And I think the first way to look at it is it'll be a shootout. It'll be Peyton Manning versus Phillip Rivers, two of the best quarterbacks in the league right now, going tit for tat until we see who gets the ball last and can win the game. But the other way to look at this game is that there's a potential for one of these two teams to have a defensive stand, have one team run away with it in terms of the score, and the other team to slow or stop their opponents from scoring the football. We saw that last year where the Chargers controlled the time of possession, but this year they're a little lean on their running backs, so we may not see that, and I think it leans towards the first option. But whatever the case, because of the possibility of the first option, you got to start your studs in this game. For the Chargers, you're starting Phillip Rivers, Antonio Gates, and then Keenan Allen, who I know you had mentioned you have him on one of your teams, and he's not playing the best football, or at least he's not getting the attention that we all wish he would get from Phillip Rivers, but you're still starting him because of this particular matchup. And then for the Broncos, the usual suspects, Peyton Manning, Ronnie Hillman, you mentioned him, and for those reasons, Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, Julius Thomas, and then even Wes Welker. I like him as a low-end wide receiver 3. Last week we finally saw him produce to the tune of 50 yards and 1 TD, and I think that's what you've got to expect from Wes Welker going forward. Other than that, I think you got to get charged up for an old-fashioned Colorado gunfight a la Manning and Rivers. Broncos win.
Is there such a thing as an old-fashioned Colorado gunfight?
I don't know, but there is now.
I think we need. There's any.
I had a hard time picturing it too, but I figured there must have been gold miners and that sort of thing, so they probably had guns.
No, there was no gold miners in Colorado.
I thought there were. No. They got mountains.
They were on their way to San Francisco, but they weren't doing any gold mining.
Well, maybe they stopped there to ski. I don't know.
Dear God. All right, so let's move on. I can't wait till we get to the Bengals. Or are they on a bye this week? Oh, no, they already had their bye. Never mind. Anyway, moving on. And folks, if you're scratching your head wondering what I'm talking about, you'll find out in a minute. The Detroit Lions travel to the Atlanta Falcons. And they're in Great Britain. That's why I'm playing God Save the King or the Queen. The Detroit Lions at 9:30 Eastern Time will take on the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons have been as disappointing as anyone could have hoped this year. I think Mike Smith has got to be on the hot seat. They're 2-5. Their only game they lost at home was to the Bears, and the Bears' defense is not nearly as good as this Lions offense. Whether or not they get Calvin Johnson back, I don't know if there's been an official word yet. I believe he is slated to return, but I personally don't believe he can possibly be at 100%. I don't think that will matter. The Lions' defense is really, really good, and the Falcons just don't have it this year. I'm picking the Lions on the big road in London.
Keith, you got to ask yourself the question is how good is the Lions defense? And here's how good they are. They're number 2 in points allowed at 15 points allowed per game. They're number 1 in total TDs at 10. They're number 1 in total defense at 290 yards per game allowed. And they're number 2 in rush defense with only 73.4 yards per game. That's pretty darn good last time I checked. So because of that, you're going to bench Matt Ryan this week. And you're going to bench every single Falcons running back that you might, if you have one of them, I feel for you. But if you have them, do not start them this week. The only Falcons worth starting are Julio Jones and Roddy White. And somehow I see them combining for 200 yards and 1 or 2 TDs on the day. And that's about it. In terms of the Lions, because this is a bad Falcons defense, you could start Matt Stafford. Joique Bell is going to be the better of the two options, but if Reggie Bush is active, I think you could get him in the flex. Golden Tate should absolutely positively be a must play. And then the Lions DST is number 1 in fantasy. You roll them out. I don't care if Matt Ryan magically has a good game this week. They'll have a better game. So the Falcons take a licking from the Lions. I got the Falcons in Great Britain.
Really? The St. Louis. Really? It sounds like the old 7-Up commercials from back in the day.
Sort of,
7-Up.
Yeah. Hey, it's late night sports radio, my friend.
Yeah,
late night sports radio.
It's off the wall, peeps. The St. Louis Rams traveled to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Rams coming off their nice surprise win against the Seattle Seahawks. Austin Davis has been a nice story. He really has. Pressed into service when Sam Bradford was injured yet again. The thing is that Seattle, I really think, was caught off guard with the whole Percy Harvin debacle. Their mind just didn't seem right. And they came back late in that game. The Chiefs are at home. I know they're only 1-1. They're 3-3 on the season. Big question mark with Jamal Charles going through concussion protocols now. But I am going to take the Kansas City Chiefs at home.
Kansas City's won 2 of the last 3 games, and the Rams beat the Seahawks last week. So what? So they beat the Seahawks. A few teams have beat them this year. I don't see this as they're not a dominant team just yet, and I see the going tougher for them on the road against a Kansas City Chiefs team that should be playing better at home, especially 2 weeks removed from their bye week. The thing that kills me about the Rams is their defense is just terrible. Even in beating the Seahawks, their defense was terrible. They're allowing 145 yards per game to running backs, which makes Jamal Charles, as long as he's active, a must-start. And if for some reason he wasn't active, then now Davis is a must-start. Now, it's a much better matchup for the wide receivers, but who do you start for the Chiefs? You can't really trust Dwayne Bowe, and everyone else is sort of a no-name, and you just don't know who could possibly step up. But you have to like Travis Kelce. He's the red zone target for the Chiefs, so I'd give him a go if you have him as a low TE1. I like the Chiefs' defense at home as well. And for the Rams, the only player I think that's worth playing this week is an RB2 or as a flex is Trey Mason. He has certainly shown that he deserves to be the starter. He deserves to get the majority of the carries. Keith, any idea what Ram tastes like?
Chicken.
No. But whatever it is, we'll ask the Chiefs on Monday.
Oh,
Chiefs win.
Wow. That was a pretty big setup there. Dear God.
Come on, go with it, buddy. Go with it.
It's so underrated how hard it is to keep this show moving along when you're going to bust out comments like that. The Houston Texans travel to the Tennessee Titans. The Titans. Who are they? What are they? We have no idea. Because they don't either. Running back by committee. Bishop Sankey's averaging 4 yards per carry, but damned if they can figure out which facet of their offense they're going to accentuate. The Texans, they go as Arian Foster goes, except for last week. Foster had a nice game last week, but the Pittsburgh Steelers just all of a sudden showed up and reminded them that they still have Ryan Fitzpatrick as their quarterback. That being said, Houston is the better team. I know that Tennessee is at home, and even with Ryan Fitzpatrick, I still will take Ryan Fitzpatrick over Charlie Whitehurst. Call me crazy. It is what it is. He's still throwing to Andre Johnson. They still have Arian Foster. I like the Texans team better than the Titans. It's that simple, so I'm going to pick Houston.
You know, Keith, I love how you introduced the Titans. I would say that they're a team that's still trying to find themselves, and they're not doing a very good job of it. While on the other hand, I could see the Texans using this game as a bounce back for just the crushing the loss that they sustained at the hands of the Steelers, which was just a crushing loss. When you look at the Texans going up against the Titans, you realize the Titans allow about 120 rush yards per game as well as around 1 TD per game, which makes Arian Foster a top 5, top 10 start as usual this week. And go ahead and get Andre Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins in your lineups as wide receiver 3s. Titans are giving up about 250 yards passing and 2 pass TDs per game. Look for the Texans defense to really put a stomp on the Titans. Titans are giving up their top 10 most fantasy points allowed in the past 3 weeks. For the Titans, the only person I really like is Kendall Wright, and that's only as a wide receiver 3 due to his inconsistency. It's the weakness of the Texans. It is defending the pass. They give up about 270 yards, 13 TDs just on average. But in any case, I don't think this will be a blowout. I think both teams will play hard, especially because the Titans are at home. But when the clock ticks to 0, Texans are going to be a bunch of happy campers, and I would describe it as titillating. Texans win.
All right, we're going to move right on through that comment. The Minnesota Vikings travel to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Teddy Bridgewater looking to continue his settling in process as the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings. And what better team to do it against than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? The worst rated defense at ProFootballFocus.com, and there are all kinds. There's a nice piece I saw on Twitter about Lovie Smith's defense and why it's so easy to pick apart. But this is one of those games where I am going to go against everything that my mind is telling me, and I'm going to follow my gut. Even though the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been really, really bad this year. The only team rated worse than, well, I shouldn't say the only team. The Vikings are actually rated worse than them offensively.